Okay, so what did Eliud Kipchoge whisper in my ear and tell me was a good marathon time? Now, I had a really good comment from Will, and we were back and forth, and I love it when you have comments, and especially when you disagree with me, because it's brilliant. If we can, as runners or sports people or people, talk to each other and say, you think this, I think this, why do you think that? This is why I think that, and eventually come to a better method. Crazy thing is, in most companies, or lots of companies, and these companies usually don't survive unless they're making something very special, if you've got a super strong CEO, and he's saying, he's so kind of usually alpha, that nobody questions his judgment in the boardroom, then the company is only going forward as fast as he's going forward. And it's exactly the same when you don't listen to people or when you don't accept other opinions. When I was talking to Eliud, one of the things that I asked him, I knew that he was surrounded by journalists who are asking the same questions over and over again. And we all see this. When footballers come off the pitch, it's almost as if they can just press play and the journalist will ask exactly the same questions. How was today? And they've been so media trained that, it's total nonsense what they're saying. We played great, we played okay, we struggled in the second half, but the team were better than us and therefore we lost 2-1. Boring, really, really boring. And the fans are not learning anything. So when I met with Eliud, I thought, I've got like 15 minutes with this guy. He's the best of all time. He's won and had the world record and was the only guy to sort of get close to 2 hours at the time, and subsequently with the Ineos challenge went faster. And my questions were more about his life and his team, and when he talked about his team, his eyes lit up and he started to talk about things that he was really passionate about, because people have been asking him the same stuff about running over and over and over again. And his message to the world is no human is limited. And the part of that, and tying into the question that Will has, that his view was that my philosophy on training, midweek interval session, weekend long run, both tying into each other, a couple of recovery runs, a couple of easy runs, too easy for the top 5% of runners. And in his words, the top 5% of runners who are running 2:30 or quicker. And the fun thing about that is, first of all, when you look under the bonnet and when you kind of, okay, 5% of runners running 2:30, that's a pretty good number, and that's what it kind of should be. For 1 in every 20 people who's getting into running, 1 in every 20 men, because we're talking about a men's time, getting into running, that should be a pretty good time. 2:30, that's when you're really pushing it, you're really thinking about your sessions and stuff like that. And of course, we've got a natural talent, we've got a natural ability, then we can only go so far with it. But I responded, and he came back and said, if you kind of look at I disagreed with him because my path was very, very different. After 4 marathons, I was running 2:24 for the marathon, and I was still doing the minimum because I wanted to put the minimum in to get the maximum out and then start adding layers. And then his kind of comment was, well, you're talking about sample study of 1 essentially, and this is a much bigger picture. And if you look at if you analyze Boston results and look at the people running 2:30, I guess that most of them will be doing more than three sessions per week or more, I think he said. So let's say the difference is, I'm talking about 2 sessions, consistently 2 sessions, and he's thinking that in order to get to elite or really good amateur, you need to do 3 sessions. My problem with that is there's just not enough time in a week to recover. Now, what you could do is you could say every 4th day, I'm going to do a hard session. And I did that for a while. And so the week wasn't a constraint. I was just working on essentially 9 or 10 day cycles. So every 4th day, I would do a hard session. And that would give me over the year more training sessions, more hard training sessions, more super compensation. But even then, it overcomplicated things for me. And in actual fact, going back to the two hard sessions per week, midweek interval session, weekend long run, that's what I needed. But when I looked under the bonnet, because I thought, okay, Boston's probably a really good example because there's loads of great runners there. The qualifying standard is high. And so let's have a look at the results. And I had a look at the results. And this is what I found. So of the 15,000 male finishers at Boston, there were only 103 under 2:30, which is 0.66%. I thought, well, okay, maybe Boston's a little bit tough course. So I'll have a look at Berlin and London. London, of the 31,000 male finishers, 208 were men, which was pretty much exactly the same, 0.67%. Then I had a look at Berlin. 28,609 male finishers, 199 men under 230. And that's 0.69. So there's obviously a red thread there. So I wanted to nail it a little bit further down and see if I could come back with something a little bit more substantial to you, for you to have an idea of what is good and the difference between good and great, which is always my favorite question to anybody who's doing anything great. So when I had a look at Boston, of the 103 that were under 230, only 28 of those were under 220, which is more than 1 in 4. London, pretty similar, but a little bit lower at London. Of the 208 that were 230, under 230, 36 were under 220. And at Berlin, the percentage was high. It was 35% of runners. So of those 199 230 finishers, 67 were under 220. So what does that tell us? Now, overall, if you look at the averages, it was more than 1 in 4 that had gotten to that top 0.66%. So within the top 1%, 1 in 4 had taken that further and gone at a really quick time, under 220. So what's going on there? So my thought is, first of all, if you it depends, we use round numbers, and there's a sub 3 hour running group on Facebook. It always makes me laugh because I wonder if people just want to be part of that group, which is a massive human trait, especially in the UK. We're terrible for it in the UK. We just want to be part of that group, or whether those people are trying to run as fast as they possibly can, which has always been my argument. I don't want to run 2:59. I want to run what my body's capable of. I'm not interested in playing safe and running 2:59 and joining that club. I want to see what my body's capable of. So what I think is that people are staying safe and aiming low, and therefore people are underachieving based on what they should be running. And we can look at that from 2 points of view. The funny thing is that what we're probably seeing there is people are overtraining and underperforming. So people are overtraining, and what I've just said, people are overtraining but under aiming, which is absolutely nuts. So they're putting in all the hard work in training, getting to a certain point, and then not kind of pushing it further, which is, to me, it's a little bit crazy. And I think the big mileage that we're seeing, 100 miles a week, 140, 160 kilometers per week, in order, and you've got to do, 80% of that is easy running, and then 20% of it long run, and maybe 2 sessions, as Will is saying. I think box off the basics, take it as far as you possibly can, and then don't just aim for something round like sub 230 or even sub 220. Take it as far as you possibly can. Now, to run those times, and we're in a different time now. So 15 years ago, we didn't have the 4%, we didn't have the next percent, we didn't have propulsion in racing shoes. It was more flat shoes that were about 200 grams and gave you very, very little energy return. The whole game changed when Nike brought out the 4%. What's also changed is our understanding of nutrition. So race day nutrition, we know we can take more carbohydrate, which is great on race day, but it means that we can really hit the interval session or really hit the key sessions hard, gain the super compensation and move forward. What we also have is a lot more in terms of technology. And so we can see what the body's doing. We can see what the heart rate's doing. It's on our wrist most of the time. Everybody's got an Apple Watch now or a Garmin watch. And so we've got access to that data, and it's how we use that data and how we apply it. But it's also to do with our character. We've got all these things available to us, the super shoes, we've got the technology, we've got nutrition. We can dial everything in and hit the sessions hard. We've still got to do the basics right. And that's what people don't want. They'll very happily go and spend $350 on the latest Nike shoes, but they won't do the work. And so the work ethic, the discipline, the consistency, boxing things off repeatedly for time, not just for a week or a month or a training schedule, but over years in order to get towards your potential. And if that's an elite runner working full time, fantastic, yeah? You probably have things arranged and you're probably trying to get towards your maximum. If your potential is you in the situation that you're in with a full-time job, maybe a couple of kids, whatever your situation might be, maybe studying full-time, and you're trying to get towards your potential is different, perhaps, than what it would be if you could go at this with full-time energy and, more important, full-time recovery and resting and sleep and boxing all those things off. So my point is, what is my point? My point is that I think we aim too low, and I think we're capable of way more. I don't think we should be stopping at 230 or even 220. I think we should aim for the moon and really, really go for it. And if we look at what the data is showing us, less than 1% of runners can run 230 as a male. That's pretty wild considering where we were in the 80s. And I don't want to be one of those old guys that is like, we were way faster in the 80s. A lot has moved forward, so we should be faster, but we're not. So what's the reason there? Big question and debate, and really interesting one as well. So if you got anything from this, please comment with your thoughts, like, hit the notification bell. See you soon.